Hello and welcome to the very first NRL Supercoach Hub actual season podcast. We finally made it, boys. We did it. We have some games to talk about how good footy's back. Anton, welcome. How you going, mate?
Thanks, man. Yeah, very good. Just over in NZ, and it's a bit later over here, obviously. But yeah, like you guys, I've been fairly pumped for the start of the season. So it's nice to actually finally see it underway and happen in Vegas, which is like an extra little bit of sprinkle to happen on top.
We had lots of Vegas. We had lots of shine and drama and everything going on. Mr. Charity, did you get to catch up with the games? What did you think overall?
Mate, I watched the games from the Caxton, my first time at the Caxton, and I can see why there's so much hype around the place. That every time Reece Walsh touched the ball, it just erupted. So, yeah, really, really great. I was just so excited for footy to be back, and here we are talking about it now. I'm so pumped.
That's awesome stuff. All right, guys. So we've only got 2 games tonight. We had the Vegas games, and then we've got a break. We've got 5 or so days. We've got essentially TLT Part 2, Round 0, whatever you want to call it. We're getting the next lot of games next week. So we're going to discuss a bit of the 2 games, injuries and suspensions and news and all that sort of stuff out of it. And then probably to finish off with a bit of strategy going forwards into this next little section, because we haven't had something like this really before. Even with 17 teams last year, we had bye every week. This time we've got a split start, so we'll see how we tackle that. All right, so to kick it off, we had our Manly and our Rabbitohs game. We had the Seagulls. They ended up taking down the Rabbitohs 36-24. Anton, you just finished watching that. What did you make of just the way that the game was played, I guess?
Yeah, so obviously there was a lot of conjecture around how these Vegas games were going to go down. People were talking about that the fields weren't as wide as normal fields, and that they started getting all nervous about, oh, well, maybe the wingers aren't getting any ball, maybe we aren't going to see high scores. But then there was another school of thought where this is essentially an exhibition series of matches to show off the sport, internationally. And the thought was maybe the ref puts his whistle away over a couple of things, and we just see some points, and there's a lot of speed through the middle and da-da-da. And I think that Manly Souths game was just such a great, whether you think it was a good game or not, for an impartial, neutral fan watching the game, there was like 60 points scored. Like that's what you want to see. You don't want to see a 0-0 draw. You want to see, like, the purists amongst us will appreciate a strong defensive effort. But someone who's just there and seeing it for the first time, you want collisions, you want controversy, you want, all these really cool plays. And I think we saw a lot of that across the Manly game and the second game as well. But that first one was super expansive right from the outset. Everyone was tracking the ball wide, and they both looked super confident. Like, neither team looked like they were going to die trying. They really wanted to go out there and win that game from the outset, and they both believed they could do it. And it was cool to see them chucking it around.
Oh, it was great too. And they started off like, it was almost like they forgot about early season Russ for the first 40 minutes. Like, it took about 10 minutes to make an error. It was really great stuff to watch. Mr. Charity, do you think the strategy changed a bit as we talked about 5 meter different fields? Did you notice a difference in, say, the way that the kicks and stuff were done like that?
Honestly, I think we just didn't see as many attempts at repeat sets of kicking it into the in goal and hoping to force it dead. But other than that, they were still putting up bombs, and Turbo was contesting for it. I think there was only 1 or 2 kicks that went dead. For the most part, they really just tried to run the ball, kick up high, and then have the tall wingers try and catch it. So, yeah, it was a really, really exciting game. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the games. I think they were a little bit cautious of the sidelines. We saw in the second game, Daniel Tupou go for one in the corner and smack into the wall. So I think they did kick inside a little bit more than they otherwise would. And it gave some really interesting combinations of attack, actually. We had a lot of people competing for try saves, coming down with the ball, offloading when everybody was falling down. It was really exciting stuff to watch, especially for that American audience.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, I think that I mean, I know we're talking about the Manly Souths game first, but that and the Roosters seem like they're a different team from round one this year compared to last year. Definitely feel like they started with a different energy to what we saw last year. But I know we'll get to that later. But yeah, since we were talking about it, it was definitely something I noticed straight away from across the four teams.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll dive into that Souths and Manly game. There are a couple of good scores across the boards, and not necessarily from some of the guys we might have thought, but also a couple of guns stood up. So the only ton in the first game went to Latrell Mitchell. Anton, have we finally got fit and firing Latrell?
Yeah, man. Like I had Latrell in my fullback position straight away when the team picker started. He was going to be there. I just had a really good feeling about him and Jack Whiting getting together. Just really like the balance of their side. And then they started having all these injuries and people pulling out of Vegas, and I was like, oh, and they kind of got cold feet. And when I was watching the game, I was like, nah, I should have stuck with him, mate. He definitely looks the goods. And just when he goes into contact, he just seems to break that first tackle every single time he goes into contact. And it's just extra points for essentially the same amount of runs. He just gets those extra points every single time he does anything. And he kicks goals. So like, I think anybody who got on him early, like last year, he started actually quite well too. And I remember in those early rounds, before there's any controversy, before there's any suspensions and injuries and stuff, like when Souths have got all their players fit, they're a scary team. But yeah, I got cold feet on him, just like right before the season started. I'm not exactly kicking us at myself because I went up to Turbo, but I think he does look like a scary man.
Yeah, he looked very trim and very ready to do damage, as you said. If he has a tackle break at the end of every run, he turns a 1 or 2 point hit up into a 4 point, and that across a game that's very, very dangerous. Mr. Charity, what did you find? Trell and Turbo ended up scoring about 30 points difference, but honestly, it could have been the other way around with how Turbo got so close a couple of times. Do you think that going Turbo over Trell for a lot of coaches is the right decision, or it's just at this point it's a personal preference?
Yeah, I think it's a personal preference, right? Like Turbo could have quite easily, all those bombs that went up, he was the one that was competing, even one that he put up himself. So, he gets that and then scores a try. It's a completely different conversation we're having. But I think over the course of the next couple of weeks, Turbo will still keep firing. I did trade out Turbo right before this game for Drinky. So we'll see how that gamble pays off next week. I'm a bit nervous about it, but yeah, anyone who went with Trell, whoever had the guts to do that over the likes of a Ponga, a Drinky, a Turbo, credit to you. We'll just see how he goes about backing it up. But as I said in the chat, a smiling Trell is a new mythical creature. So I'm excited to see. He seems happy. He seems fit. And just seeing how well he did. He was almost involved in every try, including for Manly as well. But it'll be great to see how he goes for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be very interesting to see how some of these other fullbacks come out and fire, because I think all four of the fullbacks crossed 70. Yeah. They all had a pretty strong showing, and I don't think you're disappointed if you had any of them, to be honest. So I think it really is going to depend on some of those other guys like Drinkwater to determine whether you start well or not. So we've talked about Turbo. We'll change the letter and we'll talk about Burbo. How good was that? How good was that? Did you guys end up playing him, or did you have him in your emergencies and cursing that you didn't slap a reserve on him or put him in your main team?
He was straight in. I had the feeling, because I doubled down on Brooks this season after everyone told me you're crazy for putting Brooks in your team. I was like, nope, he's scoring 120 in Vegas, and almost could have if he scored that first try. Who knows? But yeah, him off the back with Burbo, I just had a really good feeling about it. So I played Burbo. He's sitting in my CTW 4, and it's looking very, very pretty in comparison to some of my other, particularly 2RF players. So yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, I unfortunately was just a little bit put off by some of the guys on their bench who can play edge. Like they had Lawson and Bullimore and Waddell, who in the past have all done that. So I was worried that we might get like a 60-minute, 30-point Burbo. But yeah, I am glad that I have him in my team, but wish I did pick up on those extra points. What about you, Anton?
Well, I spent the whole preseason saying to everybody that he's a massive trap. I said to anyone who was listening, I was like, if you can find a way to keep him out of your team, Schuster's going to come back. He's going to fuck you. He's going to be a 17th man in squads, and he's going to ruin your AE. And he's going to be the same old Burbo that we've known for years, where he's a good player but not good enough to keep out a star. And I was like, he's just too cheap. I got to have him in there. He's playing round one. He's starting on the edge. He's a good attacking team, and I played him, so I'm happy about that. But I went against my own advice, and it's fine for now. But I still maintain, like, I don't even know, like, if he makes any money at all. I think he probably loses it all by about round 7. I honestly think like he's a trap still, but I like points. What can I say?
Yeah, it's a good start. It's a good start at the very least. Well, another couple that really looked dangerous and fired. Garrick looked absolutely at home at centre. 91 points, same as Olakawatu. I think they're going to be really dangerous on that side for Manly. I mean, Saab went off, I think, with a hammy injury late in the game. But, I mean, if we've got those guys all together in this Manly team with 2 consistent halves, because Manly have had DC plus Schuster plus Arthur plus someone plus Cooper Johns. It's been a bit of a revolving door. If you've got stability there and these guys all playing together, they could be really, really dangerous this year.
Yeah, 100%. Saab's just got that raw pace as well. We saw it with Dom Young last year when he had a good centre inside and scored 27 tries. If Ruben Garrett can get Saab like really good ball in really good areas, then we're going to see a lot of try assists, line break assists, all of that, because once he gets through that line, it's very hard to catch Jason Saab. But yeah, he just one of those high effort players, and so he kicks goals as well, which is always handy when your team scores like 6 tries or whatever it was today, or 5 tries. So yeah, I think he was a fairly large outlay at the beginning of the season for a lot of teams. I could see why you probably wouldn't want to do it in your CC dub for Classic, but I got him in a draft league and I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, 100%. NRL Physio's talked about Saab's hammy strain that he did. Sprinting mechanism, hitting it at speed. It's never a good sign for a low-grade strain, so here's hoping he's not out for too long, because we do know and love how good Saab is to watch when he's in the clear.
So who
one
would
to
come
keep
in
an
for
eye
him?
on.
Would it be Vega?
Well, it might be Vega. Would Talau get a run?
Maybe, but he's more of a centre. Yeah, because Tuipulotu's gone to the Dragons.
Dragons, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Vega's the next man up on the wing. I could be wrong, but yeah, he doesn't quite have that same raw speed, but he's pretty powerful.
You could maybe move like Garrick back to the wing and then bring in someone like a Brad Parker into centre. So there's a number of different options that they have there, or do Vega. I think with the injury to Saab, depending on how long he's out for, does bring into the conversation Jackson Paulo. Maybe he played pretty well this game, which I was pretty impressed with. We've come to know Jackson Paulo as someone who can score really high and also can score really low. I was pretty impressed with him, but with Saab out, do they move down to that wing more, or do they keep their play the same and just whoever's in that Saab position ends up scoring the points? It'll be interesting to see this play out over the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to jump obviously straight away because we don't know what's going to happen. 19 points is not exactly the fastest start in the world either.
No.
Yeah, that's probably the end of the Manly options. All of the guys we wanted to talk about ended up firing.
Happy days.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, moving over to the Rabbitohs side now. We had Latrell hit the ton, talked about him a bit. Richie Kenner on 88 was the second highest scorer, and then a bit of a drop. So we had Damien Cook on 58, Johnson with a try on 54, Colotumming 53, And then we had our resident "Do we buy him? Is he a trap?" cheapie Jacob Gagai going over and getting a 53 himself. Do either of you have Gagai, or do you put him like in a Burbo bracket? Could be gone in a week and just don't want to go for him.
Yeah, I think job security is pretty poor with him. Isaac Thompson couldn't fly to Vegas. We've got Milne as well, who's kind of floating around. We heard both of those guys' names last year, and we didn't hear a peep out of Jacob Gagai. So I suspect he's probably a one and done type situation, but could be wrong. For anyone who got on, you've got a good score this week, and you've got someone who's not going to ruin your bench next week. So might even be a hold if they have more injuries. He could come back, but I certainly wouldn't be trading him in after one effort. That's for sure. But I thought he played quite well.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Someone that I probably would have been a bit disappointed if I owned, because I was considering for quite a long time as like a bit more expensive 2RF. If like someone like Fafita was firing early. But yeah, Cameron Murray 52. I think just moving to the edge for parts in that game didn't help his base. So anyone that's got Murray, should you be worried, do you reckon, Mr. Charity?
Not for me. I mean, I would have never brought him in myself. I don't know if it's got anything to do with the Vegas side of things, or if they're just that's how the rotation is going to work moving forward. I don't know. I would be a little bit worried, because I think what they're trying to do with Murray is trying to preserve him and protect him from himself, because he'll just stay out there for 80 minutes, be a tackling machine, and be run ragged by the end of the season. So maybe it's going to be a more consistent thing, but we also know that Cameron Murray is such a gun. So I think some of these other forwards and 2RFs are probably a little bit more Supercoach relevant personally, but if you have Murray, 52 isn't the worst score. It'll change and hopefully go up once we come back to Sydney and Australia.
Yeah, definitely. Anything to comment on that, Anton, from Murray perspective?
Yeah, I just think the last couple of seasons we've seen South's shape, clearly define itself. They kind of like this early ball out to Walker or Elias, and then out the back to Latrell, and when they're in good ball and good areas. And I think that kind of streaming through the middle thing, with that kind of we don't see it as much from Souths as we used to. In fact, last year we saw him playing this kind of like link man role at the back, and it was quite slow and laborious. I think a lot of teams saw it coming, and they shut him down quite quickly before he could even pass the ball. And he wasn't getting points for any of those things. He was just shuffling the ball on. It was a bit like what we saw with Burbo. So in attack, I think he's kind of lost a lot of his shine that he used to have. And yeah, if he moves to an edge, obviously you lose the work rate as well. So I don't know. I think for the money, it's I know this because I started him with him last year and was real gutted when he just kept plodding along with low 50s, and then he'd score a try and it'd be like 70 something. But like you'd think when you lay out that much money for someone who's with a gun, who plays Origin, and there's some downside with those types of things, you'd want them to have that sort of ceiling where if they score a try, they're going to be close to 100 or maybe 100 plus. And he just doesn't seem to have that. So I don't know. I think if you have picked him, it's round one. Stick with him. You obviously chose him for a reason. But he wasn't someone that I looked at closely. Just after what I saw from Souths last year and the shape that they were developing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Some of the guys who are up front in the middle all probably weren't as good as we were hoping. So we had Arrow and Kepi both scoring 42 and Totola 36. Did any of you start with those potential front row forward candidates?
Yep. Now listen, I'm hearing the chat in Supercoach Hub Discord around you're disappointed if you owned Totola or Kepi. I have Kepi and I'm happy with that. Like 42 when he's priced at, what is it? I think like a 36 break even. It's nothing crazy, but you're not expecting crazy out of Kepi. You're expecting a low price front row forward to bang out 30, 40, 50 every game for you and just be a consistent player. That's what he was for me last year when he was playing at Manly, and I loved him for that. He comes out, he scores 42 in kind of limited minutes in comparison to what we would normally expect. When we come back to Sydney, it's going to be interesting to see if Marmazelis comes onto the field and Havili goes off. Then you've got only a 3-forward bench. Kepi probably gets more minutes there. So I'm excited for it, and I'm happy with it. If I owned Totola, I'd be upset with that because he scored below his break even. And same with Arrow, I think scored just below his break even. So I'm happy with Kepi. I just want to make that very clear to everyone watching.
Yeah. What about you, Anton? Who did you have out of those?
So I think pretty much everybody who's playing the game this year would have had someone, because their prices were all just so tempting, and everyone was just scraping the barrel for someone playable at front row forward, because it was a bit of like a wasteland there. You either went with someone high priced like a Haas or an AFB or someone like that, but the mid range was kind of really unconvincing. So you were like, well, if I'm not going to get a point scorer, I'm going to get someone who's kind of stable. They'll do a job, or they'll earn me some money. So ideally, your money guys were just on the bench. You don't have to play them. But for a lot of us, like me, I actually started with Totola. He was one of my starting front row forwards. And the thought process behind that was that he used to be the kind of guy who was capable of like 55 average. And I just thought if he can do that, then he's underpriced. There's going to be a playable guy in your 17s every week. That's also going to make you money. He got a gash under his eye in the first half. I don't know if you saw that. It was like pretty massive. Now trying to like shove Vaseline in there. It was real funny trying to watch this guy trying to put like Vaseline in a massive open wound. It's like, bro, that's stitches, man. Get him off. So I think that's what happened to him. I think he got up to 20 points and then just like froze. And so I think he was off the field getting stitches and stuff. And so I'm happy to kind of write that one off as like he might have got a little bit fewer minutes. But also Souths just kept knocking the ball on. They kept, losing possession. So I think their front rowers took less runs than they ordinarily might have had. When it comes to Kepi as well, I kind of never considered him from a Supercoach point of view. I kind of know what he's kind of capable of, and to get those 40s and stuff is good, but like I think he's kind of not priced that far below that scoring output anyway. So I'm kind of like, are you gonna eventually upgrade him to someone, or are you gonna downgrade him to someone? So it's kind of this like awkward price point where he's not high priced enough to go up, but then you don't make enough money when you go down. And I definitely wouldn't be playing him in my 17, but he scored more than Totola, so what do I know?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you what my plan is with Kepi? He's my second front rower. I've got Max King as my first front rower.
Oh, nice.
He's going to be there as the plug and play player that just, if I need to make up the 17, he's a consistent player who will just score me points. I'm almost not going to trade him out unless there's injury or, added, front row forwards that come into the mix that take minutes away from him. But I'm probably going to hold on to him all year, have him on my bench and just put him in or reserve him whenever I need him. That's what he did for me last year, and he came in clutch. I cannot tell you how many times last season for me. And the fact that he's now starting at the Rabbitohs in comparison to he came on at lock or front row or sometimes started at lock for Manly. Now that he's in the starting side, he's in my team and probably going to stay for the whole year. He's great for me.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know if I would have that plan, but it's one that might work out, particularly if he does continue to score you 40s or low 40s and creeps up a little bit. But yeah, what did you guys make of Jai Arrett? It looked like he sort of might have injured himself just like a little bit early on. Might have been carrying something.
He definitely had something
tackle
under his ribs. Yeah, he got hit pretty hard under his ribs. Yeah. So I think he played through that, but he definitely had something going on.
Yeah, well, let's look at the minutes for those three. So we ended up with 43 for Totola, which is probably a bit less than we were hoping for. We were possibly hoping for maybe up towards that 45 to 50 mark. Arrett, 53. Kepi at bang on 40. I was honestly expecting Host to play more minutes than 21, but that'll be good for the others potentially if it stays that low. But yeah, so probably the only one for me that concerns me would be Totola. But as you said, he got a massive cut. we might see something very different in the next couple of weeks.
Who knows?
Yeah.
We got one more week before the prices change, and if not, then I think he's a shift, and this happens every year. You kind of he's not a selection that I was like over the moon about, but I had about 3 or 4 choices in there, and I didn't feel great about any of them, and so I thought I don't have many bunnies, I'll jump on him. But it may still work out, but who knows? I'm not wedded to the guy by any means.
Yeah. Probably the last guy we want to talk about from this game. There's 1 or 2 people I've seen floating around saying, "Oh, Cody Walker might be a go at 5/8 if you really just don't want to pat for Dylan Brown." Kind of disappointed. 33. It just shows that really had to look out for Manly's early draw wasn't amazing, and Dilbags was just it just looks safe. Hopefully he can bounce back because I own him in a dynasty draft at this point. But he'll be interesting to watch over the next few weeks, because if he drops say 150k, he might be a really good pickup when you are looking to upgrade your 5/8 2 in maybe 6 weeks or something.
100%. It's just a question of who that second 5/8 is that you've got and how fast they can make money. Because I've seen a few stinkers plug-in gaps at second 5/8. That's for sure. Like KO Weeks and dudes like that. So
definitely.
Lockie Galvin to Cody Walker. Let's go.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah. All right. We'll move over to the next game now. Roosters and the Broncos. This one had a little bit of everything. It had a little bit of drop balls, a little bit of injury, a little bit of drama, and more fullback points. So we had Teddy 78, we had Walsh 72. I was just reminded basically that Walsh is still Walsh. He's going to do some amazing looking stuff, and then he's going to just throw the worst passes and drop the ball 3 or 4 times a game. So I don't know if he'll reduce his errors. Did you see anything in either of those two that would give you a bit of a worry or maybe some confidence moving forward if you picked either of them over the elite options?
Certainly James Tedesco. I think if you kind of went out on the limb with James Tedesco, it's a big risk, because last year it looked like he might be kind of hitting a bit of a wall, and we might be starting to see the start of a decline. But he was so involved in this game. Him and Joey Manu were in everything early. Manu was outstanding in that game, I thought. But he was going up and winning 50-50 catches. He was throwing offloads. He looked like he had a lot more direction about his play than just scuttling along and fending dudes in the chest while running sideways. He was actually doing a lot of really good stuff in there. So I think if you took a chance and went for Teddy, I think you'd be feeling really good about that, considering how much less you paid for him. With Reece Walsh, I think like if you chose Reece Walsh, you know what you're signing up for. Like for the most part in that game, I think they shut him down really well. They kind of showed him the sideline. They knew he was going to skip outside, and then they were quick enough to just swallow him up. I think Suaalii saw him coming a lot of times, and he's just so big. He's such a big center. He just wrapped him up like a tarantula. And then same with Joey Manu on the other side. They were really good for the most part. But then there's always a couple of moments in a game where he'll do something and he'll get that good score. Like he'll be hovering around the 20s, something like that, for about 60 minutes, and people are like, "Oh God!" And then he saves himself with some like magic play and stuff. And he had 1 or 2 of those in the game, and that's kind of what you get with Reece Walsh. You get clammy hands while you're watching him, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun watching him play. So I think if you went with Reece Walsh, I think you got what you paid for. And I think if you went with James Tedesco, you probably got a bit more than what you paid for.
Yeah, I think that's a good read. Teddy will be really interesting to see how he goes, because this Roosters team, they looked powerful. Like, we know how good the Broncos forward pack was last season, and they did lose Flegler and they did lose Piakura to injury, to a HIA early on. But the Roosters just pushed him over after that. Carrigan moved out to edge, I think, for a bit. And they just, after that first probably 5 or 10 minutes, they were just down that end of the field constantly. And I really think they won the battle and deserved that win for sure over the Broncos.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing that's really different about them from in this game that we noticed from last year, I thought was Brandon Smith. He looks a lot more, more direct out of dummy half than he did last year. I think he was still. My read on last year was that he was still transitioning from his mixed role that he had at the Storm. He wasn't an out and out dummy half. He was still in the body of that kind of like half dummy half, half middle forward, and he seems to have really conditioned himself a bit better. Sort of going into round one this year, I thought he played really, really well, and just their speed through the middle. And when May came on, he was throwing offloads and doing some really good work in the middle that just allowed them to keep pushing through that channel. And with no Carrigan there and no Flegler, I think that's actually a really big hole when you take those two guys out. Like one guy's gone for good, but the other guy, if you move Pat Carrigan out, that it seemed to throw out their entire shape, which is, for me, was a bit of a worry for them because they've lost Kurt Capewell as well. And so if they were to lose an edge back rower, suddenly they're a bit skinny when it comes to depth. So we'll see with Brisbane. Like I certainly think they're capable of anything this season, but I think seeing them lose a back rower was actually quite telling because I don't think they adjusted to it very well.
Yeah, it sort of seemed like Carrigan just wasn't there as much as we know he can be, and they did get really pushed back through the middle for a while. But
Yep.
as you just mentioned before, someone who did a lot of that, how good is Terrell May? He's going to be an absolute weapon when he's full-time in playing in full minutes. 60 points in felt like was no time at all. Did either of you guys see Robbo's comments after the game?
Oh, not after the game, no.
Yeah, he basically said, you've got all your bench rotations, you want to bring Collins back on, you want to bring all these players back on, but he just doesn't get tired. You don't want to take him off. So it's really good signs going forward that if we do have some problems and somebody else is missing for a couple of weeks, which we'll get to later, he could be a really great swap for some of these other Roosters options that might not have gone as well as we hoped.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maria Hargreaves comes back though, of course,
Mm.
which is something to keep in mind. But he's not exactly a huge minute guy. I actually got rid of May this morning. And I got rid of him for Spencer Leniu because I needed the cash somewhere else. And I just thought, well,
oh no,
if they don't play as many, if he scores, within sort of 10 points, it's $100,000. Like, I can live with that. But I think what we're seeing here is just a much better Supercoach player in May. He's just a much better player, and he only needs about 40 minutes on the field to make a really good score. So anyone who's got him, I think, should be feeling pretty confident moving forward. And anyone who doesn't, obviously, it's only been 1 week. We'll see what happens from here on in. But I'd be feeling good if I was a Terrell May owner.
I think that's spot on there. We haven't seen someone consistently put up that sort of real high PPM for a little while. It's just absolutely astonishing with how much you can get through with that work rate and just throwing out those really effective offloads. So I think moving forward, if he does keep good minutes when JWH comes back in round 2, it'll be definite somebody to consider before the price moves. But I don't know if we can trust the minutes from this. As you said, we've got JWH coming back, but we also had a couple of guys go down. So, Mr. Charity, do you want to talk about the two unfortunate edges?
No, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it at all. Oh, seeing Piakura leg on the ground, it hurts. Because I had not had Piakura in my team for a long time. I like him and I rate him. I think he's going to be a very great Supercoach player. But I thought, you know what? I'm gonna throw him in. I'm gonna trust him, and then knocks out a 1. It hurts, but just to everyone who is super coaches and really upset with it, just remember these things happen. Hopefully, he comes back and starts firing and makes us all happy. Otherwise, it's gonna hurt. Who was the other edge that went down? Was it Tupanua? that
well,
had the
we had something unusual happen. He went off in the 43rd minute, which is a really unusual time to go off. Like when you've just come back from halftime, you don't expect a forward to go off 3 minutes, much less an edge forward. I did note that NRL physio commented and said it looked like he'd copped a knock to the knee not long before he went off, but there was no replay of it, no real great angles. So he was walking around after the game. Hopefully he's all good for next week. Yeah, and then Wong, I think, also went off. Let me see if I can find the comments.
Wong went off in like the 25 minutes because I've got him in my team and I was watching him like a hawk. And he started really well. He was getting through a lot of work. And then I was like, what the hell? He's gone off after 25 minutes. Why the hell would you sub a dude who's gone off? And people were going over Twitter, were going like, oh, maybe it's just because he's just blowing a bit hard. Or I was like, nah, not 25 minutes. Not a starting edge back row. Something must have happened. So he went off, and then Nat Butcher took his spot, came on for a while. He'd actually looked really good as well when he came on. And then Satili went off as well. I was like, what the hell is going on here? They just like keep moving these edge back rowers around. It's really hard to get an idea of what the true minutes would be on that back row, which is the question that everybody had going into this game. Was like, okay, there's value somewhere here. Who's the guy? What should we do? What should we get? But I feel like after this game, we're not actually any clearer on what the true minutes would be for that rotation. So it's kind of really annoying. You can't really move anybody on and go, like that didn't play out the way I thought it was going to play out. It didn't play out the way anyone thought it was going to play out. I actually got rid of that when I sold May for Lenu. I swapped them around before the start of the round. I used the money to go from Satili up to Wong. So I've basically just cancelled out any extra points that I would have made. So it's essentially like just a completely null move. But I love what I saw from Wong. I thought he looked really good. Satili was very busy as well. But it's kind of hard to know what his role would have been if he didn't go off.
Hey, let's play a game. Let's play Guess Who Had Piakura and Satili in their starting side.
It's a bit rough.
I think a lot of players would have had Piakura though. I think he was such a popular player. I had him in my 2 draft leagues as well. I drafted him twice.
So I didn't have Piakura, but I did struggle with Tupanua's 25. So it's better than one, but still, you do when you've got all these 3 edges who are really quite popular, strong options to start the year, and all went down with some sort of injury problem or potential niggle. It's not a great start. So hopefully, all of our other 400k guys can stand up for us this week and reverse the fortunes a bit.
Please.
That would be good.
But on Wong, apparently the team celebration that they had in the sheds, he was up and jumping and dancing around. So it looks like for Wong, it's not too much of an issue. I haven't heard too much about Satili, so hopefully that's nothing to worry about as well, because I'd hate to have to be trading early. I don't want to be doing this.
You didn't see any dancing from Satili?
No, not that I saw, but
that's a shame. It's a shame. Here he has quite good moves, quite good shapes.
Yes, he is. He is. Cuts good shapes.
Yeah. Who else have we got to talk about for the Roosters? We had a decent Victor Radley score. Cheese, I would have kind of expected more than 42, and I would have expected probably more minutes given how the rotations were, but I guess I just thrown out so much that maybe it didn't work for him to come back on late, especially because the Roosters were up. Any thoughts on that?
I think he just he'll probably update to about 50. Like he was bumping and running quite a lot. He was making a lot of tackles, and I was watching him quite closely, and he was getting through a lot of work. There may even be a line break he was owed in there. But I thought he was pretty strong, and that might be the plan, is just to have him on there, unless I think the game is really in the balance and bring him back on later on. But Sandon Smith's a good player, man. I think he's got the instincts of a half. And when you've got guys like May and stuff like that on the field, you don't actually need that kind of strong power running game from your dummy half as much. Luke Keary, I thought, looked really good in this game as well. You didn't see this from him last year. He looked a bit kind of unsure of himself, or a little bit kind of uncertain when he was in really good ball areas. But his defense was really good. And I thought a lot of his options that he was taking were really quite good as well. So one of those two needed to kind of really make their mark in this game. Sam Walker, I still think he was all right, but I still think he's got a bit of a way to go if the Roosters are going to do well this year. But Luke Keary, I think he looks like he's getting close to the form that we know he's capable of, but haven't seen for a while. He was quite good tonight, I thought.
Yeah. What else have we got from this game?
Are we not going to talk about Manu?
Oh, yeah. I completely skipped over him because I just didn't think about him when I was setting up my team, but he was everywhere. Hey, 97 points.
Lord.
He was the first guy I mentioned in this
pass.
game. He was unreal. Yeah, I thought he was fantastic.
What a no-look pass was that one.
Freak.
I
freak.
was at the Caxton full of like Brisbane supporters, and they were upset when they saw it. But I just turned around to them. I was like, "You can't even be mad at that. That was such a good try." And they were like, "Yeah, no, that's fair. It was so good." So that was beautiful. It's great to see Joey Manu playing like that. He's incredible. And looking at his price, he's $650K. It's tempting. I don't know if I could do it, but Jesus, he looked good.
He did. Yeah, he looked amazing. I was really happy for Pauga too, that he was standing in the right spot.
Yeah.
Because if that went over the sideline, it would have been such a downer. But he was just happened to be in the right spot, and he just went over for that try. Not everything went right for him in that game. I didn't think he dropped a kickoff or something, or he didn't have a great game in some respects. But it's a dot down, and he'll be in that highlight reel moment forever, even though he didn't do much. But yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good. And it wasn't just those magic plays. He was in everything. I thought he looked dangerous every time he had the ball. There was that one move where he had that sort of standing start, and then he completely stood up. Was it Richie Kennar or something? No, it was wrong team. Salon Cobbo just sat him down. That little ankle breaker right on the sideline. It was so good, man. He's a very good player. Yeah. And of course, during Origin, if Tedesco is fullback again, suddenly he's in the mix again to have those unicorn points during the middle of the season. So, if you're expecting his price to drop off before that time, then we may be wrong about that.
Yeah, because it'd be really hard to get a 750K, 800K Manu if he starts off really strong as well. But if he's playing like that and then you put him at fullback, it'll still probably be worth it. But yes, I think Manu, we know what we come to expect with Manu. If he's on, he looks like that and he looks incredible. It's just whether he can stay like that this year with the Roosters looking really improved.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, probably the last person that I want to talk about for the Roosters, we have to talk about it eventually. Spencer Leniu. So 40 points, but possibly more relevant and more importantly, do you reckon with potential allegations and racist remarks we might have heard, do you reckon he might be missing some time?
Well, yes. The answer is yes, he might. We don't know. The ref didn't pick it up. I don't know if the field mics picked it up. I don't even know if any other players picked it up. But there was certainly some people pushing and shoving him at the time. So one would assume that other players heard something, and the investigation usually goes through that. If they can't pick up on-field mics and stuff like that, they'll go through the courses of interviewing players and to see what happens. So whether he meant anything by it is kind of neither here nor there. If he did say what he was alleged to have said, then I think we can assume he'll get sat down for a considerable amount of time. Marcelo Montoya last year got sat down for a homophobic remark for about 6 weeks. It was ages. And, he's he's certainly not the type of player that you would have thought who would have said something like that. And he has like a gay sister and everything like that, and he was just like, I don't know what came out of me. I apologize, blah blah blah. But it was too late. You just can't say that stuff on telly, not in front of a international audience and stuff. So if he did say that, then I think he's gone for about 6 weeks. And if he's gone for that long, then if you're not on Terrell May already,
it will be Terrell May season.
You bloody well should be, because I think he's going to move into that next position, and I think White will come in behind him. So not that I want him to go down because he's in my team, but if he did say that, then I probably do want him to go down, because I don't think that sort of stuff belongs in our game.
Yeah, I think considering the fact that they made a formal complaint about it means that it was something serious. There was a quote from Jonathan Thurston saying that apparently Ezra Mann was like crying after the game because of it. Just bringing up a lot of issues that a lot of people face. So it's tough. It's very, very tough. And Lenu should be better than that. So I'm fully expecting him to get anywhere between 4 to 6, maybe even 8 weeks. But who knows what we see? It's just the fact that it was, the opening round. There's so much attention on it. The NRL, I think, are going to come down pretty hard on it if it is proven. But the fact that there's a formal complaint there, to me, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, it's weird, because like when I saw an interview as well, like a Triple M interview with Reedy, and he was talking to Spencer Leniu, and he said like, obviously there's an allegation made. Like, what do you think of it? He was like, no, it's nothing, just banter. He was like, so you're not worried that you got a case against you? He's like, no, not at all. Not worried in the slightest. So he's like, he clearly thinks that like he didn't do anything wrong. So it'd be interesting to see how it pans out, because he's either lying to himself or lying to everybody else, or he's legit and he didn't actually say anything and Ezra heard something that wasn't actually said. Just a real messy situation. You don't really talking about this stuff in round one. No one wants to be talking about it. And I think if the NRL even gets a whiff of like any kind of like a legitimate thing around this claim, then he will be gone for sure, because they can't be hazy on stuff like this. They've just got to be real tight on there's essentially their value system. So yeah.
Yeah. I think with the precedent sent on Montoya, as you said, it looks likely that it's going to be come down on. And so we'll see what happens with that in the next couple of days, I suppose. But yeah, any other comments on the Roosters before we move on to the Broncos to finish off?
I had one thing I want to say, which was around Billy Smith. So some people were fairly high on him before the season, but apparently he picked up some kind of hamstring injury in the days leading up to the game. But does anyone know anything more about that injury?
I think
was it a precautionary thing, or?
I think it was only supposed to be a week or couple of weeks. I don't think it's super long, but yeah, given that I think Robinson also said we got 6 quality players at the back, we'll rotate a bit. We could just see him sit out for a bit until he's properly ready, and then he'll come in, spend a bit of time there, and we'll see what happens from there. Updates have just come in for the games. So I'll read through some of them now. We got Manu up to 106. We got Latrell up to 110, Turbo 81, Burbo 72, Arrow down to 39. What else we got? Totola 37.
Smith up to 48. I said 50, so I was close.
Yeah, there you go. It's pretty close. Well, we might as well go through the Broncos. Yeah.
Arthur's went from 47 to 60.
Ooh, wow.
I'm happy as an owner, so I'll take that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, while we might just read from the top down and discuss a little bit. So we got Walsh on the Broncos side at 81. Payne Haas got some more tackles added and is up to 71 now. Jordan Ricky 62, Arthur 60. Corey Jensen played a few more minutes, probably with Piakura's injury, for a 57, Cobbo 53. And then we started to get down to some of the lower scores, like Carrigan playing out on that edge. But yeah, so I think Arthur's owners will be pretty happy with that. Haas owners will be breathing a bit more of a sigh of relief that his expected consistent high scores is just there. And yeah, all of these fullbacks getting extra points is very handy.
Piakura
one guy
up
we
to
have-
4. We'll take
Wow.
it.
Quadruple the
We'll
score.
take it.
How
We'll
good.
take it, guys.
Take absolutely anything there. One guy no one's mentioned yet is Corey Jensen. So I saw a bit of chat around him because like we were all talking about how we were scrounging around at that kind of like $400,000 mark for some front row forwards. His name did come up quite a few times just because he was in the lower end of that, and he was probably going to be starting. But looking into some of his sort of stats on previous seasons and his work rates and stuff like that, there was, I think, a consensus around the fact that he probably would be this kind of low 40s plotter. I actually really liked what I saw from him. I thought his work rate was really good. He's a bit of a tackle bot, which is fine. Zero attacking upside to him whatsoever. But if he can do that for about 400k and he can score you high 50s, that's kind of what I was hoping Lenny was going to do for me or Totola. So I think that's someone that I'll be watching pretty closely next week. If he can back that up and it wasn't just a result of the minutes shuffle, then I think that's someone that should be taking interest in.
Yeah, I thought there was a little bit of value with potentially maybe an extra 5 minutes a game with Flegler gone. Don't know how much, but we'll begin to see next week. Mr. Charity, for some of these better scoring Broncos options, like your Payne Haas, your Reece Walsh, and your Arthurs, how does that sit you going forward into next week if you've got a couple of these guys? Especially if you've got money locked up in Haas, how does that affect you going forward, potentially with some of the shuffles and the injuries? I guess what I'm going towards is how does it set you up for TLT2?
As in, if you have these high upside players in the Broncos team, how does that set you up for the next couple of days?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, especially if you've got money locked up in a few of these Vegas players, what are you hoping for out of TLT2? Are you hoping for lots of cheapies to be named, or depending on how many Vegas players you have locked in already, maybe not so much?
Can I just say that if TLT2 comes out and we don't see the likes of Kane Bradley, we don't see the likes of Ethan Strange, if we don't see the likes of maybe even a Jack Bostock, I think a lot of super coaches may be in a bit of trouble. So I've got my backup plans where I can shift money and rearrange some things. So I'm not in that position. But if you are personally in that position, let's just say, for example, you had Trell, you had Turbo, you maybe had like an Olakuatu or a Kaloa Matangi, those kind of players eating up a lot of your salary cap, and then there's some big shifts and big surprises, you're going to have to be moving around the very limited money you have to potentially even some cheapies that won't be playing, which will screw up your season before it's almost even begun. So just be careful of that. I was big on that in the Thursday team reviews in the Supercoach Hub Discord, telling people just be cautious that you've got these backup plans for if this risky player or this risky player isn't named. So I think come TLT2, we may have a lot of scrambling and trying to find some potential CBAs out of nowhere that we're just gambling on might come in throughout the season.
Yeah, Anton, how much your team have you got coming from Vegas? Have you locked in 3 or 4 or 5 players, or are you on the upper end of that?
So I've locked in 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 players are gone. Well, 5 if you count Lenya, who was on my bench. So that's that's quite a few players, but I'm imagining most of the rest will get names. I don't know. I'm hoping not to shuffle things around that much, but there are some positions that I know there are players in a similar level that I can expect a similar output from. So if one doesn't get named, I can pick another. It's not that much of a big deal, but there are a couple of cheapies in there that I just know probably won't get named. But there'll be a couple that maybe will. So I don't know. I almost look at when I get to Tuesday, I'm looking at like it's a new team picker with a reduced salary cap and reduced positions, and you just start again. And you kind of go, okay, who's available, who's the best players in the position. I mean, I kind of know exactly who I've got locked in that I know is going to be names, but even guys like Smithies or someone might not get names where we think he's going to get names. You know, we've only seen some trials. We don't really know what's going to happen with some players, or like a Jack Bostock, like you say, he might just not be there. And then there's no one else around that mark. I was talking about like this with the Burbo discussion about like why you shouldn't buy him because he's a big trap, and then I ended up buying him. Was that like if he doesn't work out and he becomes someone who's crap, you can't go down. They'll be like, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near the cheapies that a lot of people are hoping for in CT Dub. So, or even second row. So like you'll have to go up from a 280k player, which is really hard. Otherwise he could score you single digit numbers on your bench and just lose a lot of that money. So, you know, that's why he's priced at the number he is because he's got a history of sort of doing that in seasons. But yeah, if some of these other cheapies aren't named, I don't know, man. I'm pretty light on my CT Dub bench anyway, to be honest. I'm actually willing to carry someone who's not going to play, who's first drop. I'm willing to do that in maybe one scenario, but maybe not all. You can't really do that. You kind of need the value to be generated. So having said that, I'm willing to just let my side play out, you know, for the most part, as I've planned it for the first week. I've spent enough time thinking about it. And if it's not right, you can sell players like a Totola next week or someone like that who I'm not in love with. I can downgrade players like that, and I can move that money down somewhere else to bolster that position. So it's 1 week. I don't think we should panic, but yeah, there's always surprises on the team lists.
100%. You've got to have options on the table and be a little bit flexible because we haven't had something like this before. So just approach it without too much worry and panicking around, because it's very easy to plug and play somebody who probably isn't a great fit for your team if you haven't made sure your money's in the right areas. Mr. Charity, was there anyone else you wanted to comment on from these games? Like the Broncos, we've only gone through the top half because not too many of the bottom ones relevant, or from the Manly Seagulls game?
Yeah, I actually can't believe we went this whole podcast without talking about the brilliance of Luke Brooks. I have been saying Luke Brooks is in for a massive game, and you know we see him come out and was a little bit quiet, and I was a bit worried at the start, but started to warm into it. I think that was a warning for what we're going to see out of him over the next couple of weeks. I've been very high on him, and I know a lot of people have been giving me a lot of crap for that, but I was really happy with what I saw. He scored above his break even. If he had got that try down as well, it would have been an absolute incredible game. And I just want to clarify to everyone who I was guaranteeing Luke Brooks to come out and score 120. I VC'd him, so if I did the VC loop, he would have scored me 120. So technically I was right. So yeah, so you're welcome, guys. But in all seriousness, I was really, really happy with what I saw. It's just great to see Luke Brooks playing footy. He was always a running 5'8". The Tigers tried to make him into a halfback, an organising half, which he was never great at. He just got by and did it. So it speaks to what an incredible football player he was to be playing almost out of position and doing a role that he's not known for. We saw at the Tigers him crush it whenever you had someone else taking over the organising. Now you've got one of the best organising halves in the game. I think the more that Brooks gets used to this team and the combinations that he has there, maybe even with a wider field, I'm super high on him, and I cannot wait to see him score his first ton in the Manly colours.
That'll be great. Hey, Luke Brooks to the moon.
Why are you guys laughing?
No, I do see upside in Brooks if he does fire. It'll be interesting to see how this Manly team goes, because when they put it together today, they did look pretty dangerous, especially with some of those combos. And now that Garrick's in the centres as well, they've just got strike weapons across the board. Hopefully Saab isn't out for too long, because that backline's really spicy when it gets going, and Luke Brooks could definitely benefit off the back of that. Well, there's only 2 games. We haven't got full info on the others yet, but how are you guys tracking heading into, I guess, this proper full end of round 1, TLT part 2, shall we say?
I'm doing okay. Other than Piakora and Satili, I think I'm doing pretty well. The fact that I had Burbo in my scoring team and I had Arthur's in my non-scoring side, like on the bench, I'm pretty confident with that. And in comparison to you, Anton, I know you said that you were pretty light on in the center wing position. I feel like I'm pretty stacked in it. I've got Best, RTS, May, and Burbo on the field with Arthur's, Salmon, and Bradley on my bench. So I'm feeling pretty confident with that going in. I don't want to jinx it, but like feeling pretty confident in that position. It was the front row forwards and the 2 RF that I'm not confident in. So we'll see. I'm just very excited for Teamless Tuesday to see how it plays out.
Oh, it'll be good. We'll finally have a couple of head-to-head wins and matchups finally filling up. It's just a tease, making it out over 2 weeks instead of 1. But yeah, I'm had a bit of a slow start. Arrow and Tupanua were a bit annoying. Burbo was good. And yeah, just got to wait and see on some of these other players hopefully get named, because we need some cheap guys because of all these mid-range we're trying to stack up on. Anton, what are you reckoning for some of these cheaper options you've said we might have to scramble around if they're not named? How are you sort of how have you gone with your Vegas players?
Vegas players hit and miss. I went with Turbo, who went up to 81. He could have been easily a ton. He missed a couple of tries there. One was just like a double movement, and the other one was held up or something. Oh, no, it was interference, something like that. Happy with, obviously, the Burbo score. 4 for Piakura. Wong looked better than I think he scored, so 46. So happy enough with how he went. Saw enough to be happy with him staying in the side. And then obviously Totola scored lower than I wanted him to, but I'm not panicking. It's a shit position anyway. So hopefully next week he scores like 55, and then it all evens out to where I thought he was going to score. So yeah, I've got a bit of a mix in terms of who I've picked in other positions. So your Luke Brooks, was he your halfback, Charity? Was he your reserve halfback?
Yeah.
No, I've got Sean Johnson.
He was actually my starting halfback.
Oh, starting. Okay,
yeah, I moved Hines to the bench
bench
just in case he doesn't get named with that injury.
Yeah, nice.
I can easily switch to either a Johnson or Cleary.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah. So I've got Hines and SJ in that position, so that's why I'm a bit lighter in my CT dub. But yeah, I've got RTS and May and Hutchison are my starting CT dubs. So, but the guys on the bench are Jack Bostock, Ali Leotawa, and Edel from the Sharks. So I know probably the last 2 aren't going to get names. I'm okay with one of them not being named because they're both first drop, but I'm not okay with neither of them being named. So if neither of them are named, then I'll need to do some zhuzhing. But you know, that's fine.
Out of besides those 2, who are you hoping to be named on Team List Tuesday? I'll start with you, Mr. Charity, and then we'll switch back to you, Anton.
One big one for me that isn't on almost anyone's radar. So I thought I'd throw this out as a little smoky. I'm really hoping we see Little named for the Dragons. I know he pulled up with his hamstring injury, but I took a bit of a gamble. I was contemplating, do I go Cheese or do I go Little? And I was like, I have to decide on Cheese now. So the other option I had was to go Crossland and downgrade to Little if he gets named, or leave it as Crossland. The problem is I've rearranged my team and I'm now with Little. So if he doesn't get named, I need to rejudge my team to find the money to either go up to Crossland or just throw the Hail Mary and go down to Levi. So we'll see. We'll see how we go with that. Yeah.
Old Levi. Yeah.
Yep. It could be anyone else, but that's
Yeah, Little was I got him in a draft, and because I was so impressed with what he did in the trials, and he looked really good late last year too. And I think just the style of play that I saw from the Dragons, it looks like Flanagan's got them playing a much more sort of power game through the middle and just way more direct. And that suits him a lot with those big forwards running onto 100%. The ball and, fast play the balls and him just taking darts. He looked awesome. And then he did his hammy. I was like, no, because I basically had him circled in there for ages. So I've actually gone to Coruscant, who's not playing this week, obviously. So I'm relying on whoever gets named in the Eels position as my starting hooker this week. I'm just going to cop that. And the guy that I hope gets named is actually Neem. I hope he gets named to start for the Cowboys because he's my FRF1 at the moment.
Interesting.
Wow.
I've got big raps on him, and I think if Hess is obviously out for the year, so that would suggest that maybe it's Tamalolo and McLean starting, but maybe not. I've heard others say that the uptick should come from Neem and Ruben Cotter. They should get the uptick in minutes from what Hess provided. And obviously there's a new prop to come onto the bench and probably Michaeli. But I'm kind of hoping it's Neem because I kind of want to have him in my team and not just because it rhymes with Neem. I kind of would love to have him in there as a big balls play to start with, just because I don't think a lot of people would do it. So I kind of, he's the guy I hope gets named. But if not, I'm happy to pivot to someone else. But that's one of the guys I'm hoping for.
Yeah, he's definitely the guy who could take a lift this year with Leilua leaving and poor old Hess out for the year. So he could be somebody that picks up some of the slack.
The other one that I'm kind of sweating on as well is if Hutchison is not named at halfback and it's Sexton, then I'm really stuffed in my CT dub because there's not a lot of other players apart from like Xavier Savage, who also may not get named, or Bronson Sherry, who probably won't get named. So there's that whole kind of like mid 300s range where I was like on Arthur's for the longest time, but I was like a couple of grand short of getting him. And I was like, I'll just get Hutchison, that's fine. So we'll see. It could be a genius move, but at the moment it's not looking like a genius move.
Well, we've all going to find out on Tuesday. We've got 2 games done tonight, and we've got 6 more in the upcoming weekend, and then we've got full rounds of footy coming up. So look out for the Tuesday pod when we finally got these teams all up and running, because I'm sure there'll be more shuffling, there'll be more to discuss. I think we got our footy dose. We got the first stuff of the year. How good was that? Some good games and plenty more to come. Anton, Mr. Charity, thank you for joining me today. Anything else that we want to comment on, finish up before we wrap?
I have something to talk about with the Lifeline League. So obviously we've been going strong. We've got about 30 odd, I think 34 people that have jumped into that league, which is awesome. We are just shy of $1,000 raised for Lifeline, which is awesome from our community, which is great. I love it. But Dr. Kando has offered up his man bun to be cut. He's going to cut the man bun if we get to 50. So we only need, I think, 16 more. So if we get 16 more, the man bun will be cut. We will send that video. I'm also posting in the Supercoach Hub tonight the winner of one of the first giveaways that we have throughout the season, and we have multiple throughout the season. So if you aren't in that league already, make sure you are. Go to the Supercoach Hub, look at the pinned messages, and if I think it's maybe in a thread still, find that league, or just reach out to me on Discord, Mr_Charity. I'll send you through the link. It's $50 to enter, and 50% of that goes towards Lifeline. The other 50 goes towards the prize pool. So It's a great cause. Get behind it, and I want to see Kando's man bun cut. So let's do it.
How good would that be? Anton, anything to finish off?
No, nothing more, mate. Just up the wires. That's it.
Up the wires. How good will it
Get
be?
behind it.
Full teams next week, full footy, full TLT. Look out for it on the upcoming, and we'll see you all then. I'm Scoop with Anton and Mr. Charity from the Supercoach Hub. You'll find the links to our Discord if you want some expert advice and live discussion in the description. You'll find us on socials on X/Twitter and Spotify, and this will go up on YouTube as well. So thanks one and all. Footy's back. Enjoy the rest of your weekend night.
Let's
Nice
go.
one. See you.
Thanks.